What's up, Knife Tube? It's Diamond Cut Steel, and you guys and girls are going to learn something today. So, first off, I want to say that I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas and that I hope your New Year's is full and complete and you're happy, healthy, and that you get everything that your heart desires. Now that we got that out of the way, um, we're going to we're going to talk about a subject that probably gets spoke on a fair bit, but never in a complete way. I want to go ahead and say this is not going to be a quick video by any means. So sit back, bust you open a Budweiser or a Stella, and learn something. So, from what I see, when people are discussing budget steals, the they give their opinions, but they don't give it in a way that is beneficial. Okay. And what I mean by that is they don't tell you why or why not. And where this comes from is from a viewer that's a good buddy of mine. We talk on the phone all the time. I chatted with him today, and he gave me this idea. Top five steals. So what I want to do is first, because I need to do this in two areas. We need budget steals, premium steals. Um, so first, I'm going to do the budget steals. Second, I'm going to do premium steals in production knives, and then I'm going to do a third one, and that is going to be premium steals in custom knives, custom heat treats, which is why it needs to be a three-part series. So now that all that's been said, here we have quite a few different of your common budget steals, from RPM 9 to N690, K110, 154, 14C, 4116, OS8, etc., etc. So we're going to go ahead and discuss these steals fairly in depth. And I am speaking only in a production format, so please keep that in mind because some of these steals cross over into the custom world and that completely, totally changes things. So please keep that in mind. Production knives only. Anything I say in this video applies to production knives only. Okay? All right. So, how I'm going to do this is my 5 favorite budget knife steals. And I'm going to explain to you why and why the ones that aren't on the list aren't on the list. Okay? So, I'm sure this is no surprise to anyone. Number one, or actually, I can't do it that way. That would just give you all number one. We're not doing that. Okay, so number 5. This is actually a hard one. But for number, fifth spot is going to be good old 4116 Krupp steel. Okay. You hear this steel spoken very poorly of. It gets, my camera don't want to focus. It gets a lot of hate that is absolutely unjust. It is a fantastic steel. It's very relevant in pocket knives. Even though it doesn't get the love it deserves, it should. Okay, and the reason why it's such a great EDC steel, especially when it can be had in extreme budget knives like this Verdict for that you can pick up on sale for $20. Um, the reason is it's absolutely not a very long edge retentive steel. We all know that. It's not no high wear resistant steel, but that's part of its charm. The edge retention is absolutely enough for most people. Now, if you're somebody that's out there that is, you know, working warehouse jobs where you're cutting hard plastic, banding and dirty cardboard and just, foams and stuff that really, really are highly abrasive and just eat up an edge, then yes, this is not the steel for you. But that's not most of us. Most of us use a knife for a daily task as cut an apple, slice a chip bag open, cut a thread off your shirt, open mail, open boxes, cut down boxes. You're not out there slicing cardboard that's been outside and rained on 50 times, and sun dries it and it gets rained on, sun dries it, it gets rained on, it's covered in dirt, silica, and it's just becomes a highly abrasive material. um, we're not cutting, most people aren't cutting stuff like that. Now when I'm working on the homestead or the farm, I deal with that. Okay, and in that case I would not carry this steel. But for my typical day to day, I'm in an office, I'm cutting cardboard, I'm cutting uh, tape, I'm cutting plastics, just your basic stuff. um, 4116 is extremely, extremely easy to sharpen. You can sharpen this stuff to a very high level of keenness. It takes an incredibly fine, sticky edge. It strops back amazingly well. When a strop won't bring it back, a few swipes on a ceramic and you've got your bite back, and you're ready to go. And when it is time to get on a stone, a $10 Smith stone from Walmart, the two-sided Smith stones, they'll do a beautiful job on it. And it's a quick job because it's not highly abrasion resistant. So it sharpens very, very nicely. And because it's not ran super hard and it doesn't have a ton of hard carbides in it, it strops back beautifully. Okay. It's plenty tough for EDC type work in a knife like this. The edge retention is enough for most people. It's plenty stainless. It touches up easy. It can be had for very, very low cost. I mean, what more can you ask for? It is a perfect low cost EDC knife steel. It truly is. It gets a lot of hate because, oh, that knife, that steel, it doesn't hold an edge long enough for me. It's, I it's not even serviceable. That's bullshit. Okay, now I'm not going to get on that rant, but that's what you hear. And it is absolutely unjust. That is a plenty sufficient steel for 90% of people carrying a knife. Okay, it also does a really good job as like this right here, beautiful for a hunting knife, for cleaning whitetail or hogs. Beautiful knife. This knife itself is great. The steel is great again because it's so incredibly easy to touch it up. All right, so that's enough glazing 14 or 4116. So I'll go ahead and move to the next one. Um, so that's number 5. So number 4 would be Nitro V. If Nitro V is well done, it is a fantastic performing budget steel. My camera does not want to focus. It is a fantastic performing budget steel. It really, truly is. Um, it's another steel that has attributes very much like the 4116. It's very tough. Well, it in this case it is extremely tough. It's very tough. It's very corrosion resistant. It doesn't have incredible edge retention, but it touches up very easily. It strops back very nicely. Not as good as 4116, but it will have longer edge retention in a direct comparison. If you're sitting there doing a cardboard cut test, the Nitro V is going to outcut the 4116. In day-to-day use, you probably won't. There's probably not enough of a difference in edge retention that you're actually going to notice it if you're cutting different medias. Um, in a test, yes. Day-to-day, not so much. But its strong point is it touches up insanely easy. A diamond strop, and you're good to go. You can bring that edge back from extremely dull, well, reasonably dull, and on a diamond strop, especially if you got a progression of like say 951 or something like that, um, you can pull it back from quite dull and bring it back to popping hair. You just need that more, a larger micron starting strop. But it strops back very well. It touches up on ceramics very easy. It's a steel that is a very very quick and low effort to sharpen, and it will sharpen on anything. Like that $10 Smith stone will handle that Nitro V beautifully. Now, it it only really has one downside, in my opinion. Um, it is a steel that gets slick relatively quickly. Um, it doesn't hold its bite very well, and that's what kept it further down on the list. If it wasn't for that one fact, then it would have been higher up on the list. But other than that, it's a damn solid budget steel. You can pick it up for relatively cheap. Hell, like this knife right here, they had them on sale for $25. This is a really excellent little knife. But Nitro V, it's a solid steel, and I'm absolutely gonna give it number 4 spot. So now let's move to number 3. Y'all are probably gonna not be able to guess this one. Got your guesses? Got your guesses? This is a hard one too. You got your guesses? That would be good old AUS 8. Good old AUS 8. Okay. Now, this was actually a hard one to give number 3. Um, to me, it's an all around great budget knife steel. Okay. Just like 8CR. A lot of people, they truly hate 8CR. If 8CR is done decently, it is not a bad steel. But AUS 8, Companies like Cold Steel, they do it very well. Cold Steel, the Spyderco, the Bird lines. Well, the Bird lines are HCR. I'm sorry, and actually, yeah, the Spydercos are HCR too, not OS8. Okay, so Cold Steel, for example, Cold Steel does OS8 very, very good. Um, a lot, most of that OS8 I get is good. Um, it doesn't seem to be a steel that gives them a problem in large batch heat treating. It's typically done quite well. Um, Edge retention is actually typically pretty good. I would say longer than the 4116 for sure, and longer than the Nitro V. By an amount that I would say typically, if I was to carry these two knives right here, um, this one day, this one the next day, I would absolutely notice that the Sauce 8 held an edge longer than the Nitro V. It would, the edge retention increase is enough that it is noticeable over the Nitro V. Now, the Nitro V naturally is tougher. Um, y'all know that. It's also more stainless. But the edge retention of OS8 is quite good when it's done well. It's plenty tough for an EDC knife, especially for smaller EDC knives, say 3.5 inch and less of blade length. Um, the toughness is plenty for that. It's stainless enough, and the edge retention is solid. Now I will say it doesn't strop back as nicely as these two do. Um, it also doesn't sharpen as nicely as these do, but it sharpens well, just not as well. It strops back well, just not as well. But with a simple diamond strop and a ceramic rod, you can keep an OS8 edge going for a very, very long time. And why I put it as third place instead of fourth. OS8 holds its bite. It just maintains aggression longer, definitely longer, noticeably longer than like the Nitro V will. This steel gets slick pretty quickly. This steel maintains that aggression pretty well considering what it is. And that's why it's third and not fourth. Um, if if Nitro V held its aggression as well as OS8 does, these roles, it would be reversed. The Nitro V would be number 3 and the OS8 would be number 4. But just in a simple EDC knife, OS8 is a fantastic steel. It doesn't get the love that it deserves. It's really good stuff. It's typically done well. You can get it for quite cheap, and have a pretty solid performing piece of steel in your pocket. You really can't ask for more. Um, Now, going to number 2 and number 1, that's going to be difficult here. Okay, really, really difficult. So I'm sure you guys have a good idea as what I'm going to put as number 1 and number 2. Um, I'm quite sure y'all know what I'm going to give number 1, but it really starts to get tough here. Number number 2. Number 2, I'm gonna have to give to K110 and D2. Um, especially like, with companies that do these steels well, like Petrified Fish. This K110 is excellent. Um, Kubi with D2, it's excellent. So we're going to have to give number two, spot two, to K110 and D2. Now, again, that's the companies have started dialing. They've gotten it down. It's not like 5 years ago to where most of the D2 you got from China was really bad. Nowadays, most company is putting out at least pretty decent D2. Some's putting out excellent D2, and K110, like from Petrified Fish, it's excellent. You get a ton of performance for your dollar. Um, Now, why I like it, why I'm giving it the number two spot. It's stainless enough, unless you're in a very, unless it's stainless to salt pretty good. Okay. Acidity will add, especially if it's on anything that's bead blasted. Acidity and D2 do not do well together. That will cause corrosion. Like if you're somebody that has, you sweat, you're out working on roofs or, on a roof, um, and you sweating your ass off and you have, really acidic sweat. Okay. D2 is, or K110 is probably not a steel for you. However, if you're just, like, I'm around salt water, I have no problem with K110 or D2. Now, if it's bead blasted, it does require you to do a little caretaking. But it's stainless enough for most people. They're going to have no problems with D2 or K110. So it, I'm going to give it that stainless enough label. It's not a tough steel by any means, but it's tough enough, even with these thinner geometries and pocket knives. This ain't no hard use, you know, 7-inch belt knife. It's their 3 to 3.5 inch folding knives. So toughness, even at the thin geometries like that Beluga has, the it's sufficient. Um, yeah, the toughness is sufficient, and you get incredible edge retention. If it is done well, you get incredible edge retention for your dollar. Okay, edge retention wise, absolutely blows these out the water. Blows these three out the water and just straight up edge retention. Um, it holds its bite very, very, very good. It D2 nat or D2 and K110, they just because of the composition, they really do. The composition likes that aggressive, bitey edge. Okay, the composition does well with that, and it holds it, and it holds it very, very, very well. You get a ton of performance for your dollar. You know, I mean, hell, like this K110, it cuts up there with like most of your China like S35 VN, and you can get this stuff in $30-$40 knives. Um, it's just an all around fantastic EDC knife steel. Now, if we went back 5 years ago, I would not have D2 this high on the list because there was so much of it was done poorly. That's not so much the case anymore. Most companies have it dialed in pretty well. Now, you know, K110 and D2 get a undeserved reputation of being hard to sharpen. Hard to sharpen. Okay, that is not the case. D2, if the steel's done well, if the heat treat's done well, D2 and K110 sharpen very nicely. They do well at lower grit, nice aggressive lower grit edges. They do great with mid grit edges. And even if you just want that high level of keenness for push cutting stuff, they actually do pretty damn decent with a polish. Um, I would never polish D2, but depending on the type of work you do, you could you could actually polish D2 and get it to perform pretty well at certain things. For me, I like it in that 320 to 600 range. That's where I want my D2 or K110. That's where it performs best for my needs. But it's just overall a great performing steel that you get a ton of edge retention for your dollar for. If you're somebody that these three steels wouldn't get you through a day, edge retention wise, without a touch up, more than likely, as long as it's done well, D2 or K110 will get you through a day without a touch up, without being just totally, a totally dead edge. Um, Even when I'm out there really working it, I could probably, on the homestead or farm, I could probably get two to 3 days out of a piece of well done K110 without even having to touch it up. Okay. Um, where the Os 8 would maybe get me through a day. These two without a touch up would probably not get me through a day when I'm actually like working on the homestead or farm. Okay. Um, so you get substantial edge retention, and you get a steel that, so long as it's done well, it sharpens nicely. You can sharpen it on. You don't need diamond. You don't need or CBN. That same Smith stone that you could sharpen any of those other three with, you can sharpen D2 or K110 on without a problem. It's chromium carbide and aluminum oxide will cut it with no issue. Now, it is a more wear resistant steel, so naturally it's going to abrade slower. If you're on, let's say a 320 grit whetstone, and you're trying to remove steel, say you're reprofiling from 20 degrees per side to 17 degrees per side on both of these knives, okay, and you're on a Shapton 320 Koromaku, naturally you are going to remove the steel off the 4116 or the Nitro V much, or the Os 8 substantially quicker than you would the K110 or D2. They're not as wear resistant. Um, you have them chromium carbide. You got a healthy dose of chromium carbide in there that's upping that wear resistance. Um, it's also likely ran harder than any of these three steels. If it's done nicely, you're going to be in, you might be in that 60, hopefully 60 to 61 range. A lot of it is at, 59, 60 ish. But like with petrified fish, you're in that 60, 61 range. So it's harder than these three steels as well. You're not going to find much production Nitro V that's above 60. Most of it's 58, 59 HRC. Same thing with the Os 8. You're going to be in that 58, 59 Rockwell range. 4116, you're going to be down there at 56, 57. Okay, and now is where it really gets tough, and I almost have to put a runner up here to the first spot. In fact, I almost have to. Without a doubt, the top spot goes to N690 SF2 RPM 9 154 cm. Okay, without a without any doubt, 154 cm is the budget steel in my opinion. Um, Companies have a pretty easy time heat treating it well. Kaiser does a hell of a good job on it. Most of the other companies that are working with it, they're doing pretty good job as well. So without any doubt, 154 cm takes the top spot. Um, for the simple fact that it is plenty stainless, it is reasonably tough, excellent edge retention, sharpens nicely, strops back nicely, touches up on a ceramic very nicely, doesn't require a special abrasive. It's reasonably wear resistant, but not overly wear resistant. It's just a phenomenal knife steel. And you notice I didn't say a phenomenal budget knife steel. I said a phenomenal knife steel because that is exactly what 154 CM is. It is a phenomenal knife steel, not just a phenomenal budget knife steel. It's a steel that will it's plenty of steel for most people. You have edge retention that's getting up there in the not that far off of K110 D2. You're going to get edge retention that rivals like a lot of your China done S35 VN. You have a steel that is exceptionally, how do I put this? It's a 154 cm is a steel that very well, focus. It's very edge finish dependent on the performance you get from it. It can do well with any edge finish at specific tasks. Okay. But for general use, it is a steel that requires you want to be in that 400 to 320, 400 to say 1000 grit range. That's where you want to be at. That's going to be a beautiful performing piece of steel for you because you're going to have nice bite and it'll hold that bite. Um, it's plenty stainless. It's tough enough. It sharpens very nicely. And, if you're in that, say, 320 to 1000 grit range, it's going to strop back many times for you without getting too slick. It'll touch up on a ceramic rod very nicely. Um, and it's just overall a great performing piece of steel. Now, what I said about it being very finish dependent, it's a steel that if you take it up to too high of a grit, it will get slick on you very quickly, much like Nitro V. Okay. It, in order to maintain that, to have that bite and aggression, it is extremely important that the tooth structure that is formed on the more aggressive sharpening stones, that's where you're getting all that aggression from. The teeth that the stone's cutting in, that's where you're getting your aggression from because you're not getting it from your carbide volume or anything like that. So it's very important if you want bite that you don't take it to too high of a grit. And um, it's just overall fantastic. It's fantastic knife steel. It it can do excellent in production knives. It can do excellent in custom knives. You can work 154 cm and custom heat treats and get phenomenal performance. Um, so that's definitely my number one. But I'll go back and say it again. It is extremely important to get the most out of the steel. It is extremely important that you do not finish it at a polish. If you polish it, you're going to have you're going to have for your EDC type cutting, it's just not going to perform very well for you. But if you're down in that, say, a 320 to 1000 grit, depending on the amount of tooth you want, man, it performs fantastic. Okay, so now I said there had to be a number one runner up. Okay, and like it, I couldn't do it without a number one runner. A finish 1.1 because it's in my opinion better than these and extremely close to 154 cm in performance. Um, and that would be, I know what you guys are thinking I'm going to. Could it be RPM 9? SF2? I know y'all are thinking this one here. I know y'all are thinking it's 14C. Is it 14C? Yes, it is. Good old OS 10. Um, good old AUS 10 or VG 10. Uh, in my opinion, I like the way OS 10 performs a little better than I do VG 10, even though they're very similar. I prefer OS 10 to VG 10. So, as a very, very close runner up for first place to 154 cm, it's going to be OS 10. And the reason is basically all the reasons that I give you for 154 cm being in the top spot is the reason that OS 10 is right there as well. You have excellent edge retention. I would say, realistically, if they're both done well, OS 10 will outcut OS 8 by around 30%, maybe even a little more. There's a significant difference between OS 10 and OS 8 in performance. A significant difference. You have ample toughness, it's plenty stainless, it sharpens extremely nicely, it maintains its bite quite well. Um, it's a steel that you can sharpen on any abrasive. It responds extremely well to a strop, extremely well to like a ceramic hone. Um, Even better than 154 cm does. As far as strop responsiveness and like on a responsiveness to a hone, OS 10 does a better job than 154 cm. In outright edge retention, I would say if they're both done equally, that the 154 cm will outcut the OS 10 slightly, um, but only slightly. It would, and you not enough that you would ever know. You would never notice the difference in actual use. If you're side by side testing them, you may get a few more percent out of the 154, but it's not going to be a drastic jump. And the OS 10, in my opinion, sharpens even better than 154 cm does. And it also gives you a wider range of grits to where it performs very well. Is where 154 cm is a steel that I suggest never be polished. 320 to 1000 is the range that steel likes to be in. OS 10, on the other hand, is a steel that it does well anywhere. It does well down low and highly aggressive. It does great with mid grits. It does great with a light polish. It does great with a full polish. It's just an all. It's a steel that does well with any edge finish. Um, I have no problem carrying a piece of OS 10 and doing my typical daily duties with a 5,000 grit edge on it. A full mirror 5,000 grit edge. And y'all know me, I'm not somebody who really cares for mirror edges or polished edges for that matter. OS 10 just does a good job with everything. Even at those very high grits, it doesn't completely slick off. It maintains some bite. Um, it's awesome. You could realistically, number one, this one, these are interchangeable in my opinion. 154 cm and Oz 10 are, neither one is better than the other. I mean, these are literally interchangeable. I could have put Oz 10 as first and 154 CM right behind it, and I would have still felt the same about it. The only reason I put the 154 CM as number one, and it is the slight runner up to it, is because you can get 154 CM in many more knives than you can OS 8 or OS 10. It's just 154 CM is widespread in budget knives. They're both going to be, and you can typically find 154 CM because it's so well used in budget knives. You can find it for usually in lower price knives than you can OS 10. Now that's not always the case, but I'm just saying on average, OS 10 knives are going to be up there in that, $60, $70 or 50 to say $80 range. You can find 154 CM from Kaiser. You look on their sales, you find it like $30 a lot of times. And that's why I put it in the top spot, even though, in my opinion, neither steel really is any better than the other. Um, they just both perform so similar that it really doesn't matter. The one place I would say that it does matter is if you care about the edge finish. If you're somebody who wants to take polish, you want to run higher grip polished edges, go with OS 10 over 154. Um, that would be the only place I would say that there's an actual performance difference. Um, yeah, just two fantastic steels right here. 154 and OS 10, two fantastic steels. Top of the budget world, in my opinion. Um, yeah, top of the budget world. Those two steels, they own it. And I'm remember now, I got VG10 in that too. Um, but VG10 would definitely be is where these two would be interchangeable for first place. If VG10 would definitely be slightly below either or. Okay. Still close, but slightly below either or. So now, what I told you guys was I was going to give you all the why nots. I give you all the whys, why this got fifth, why this got fourth, etc., etc. So now I'm going to give you the why nots. Okay. And we'll start off with everybody's favorites. $14C. Okay. I am not a I'm not somebody who trashes 14C. Okay, that's the first thing I want to say. I'm not trashing the steel. It is a great budget knife steel. It's just it's overused. Okay, the China budget knives have got it, in their brain that anything that if they price it $50 and it's got 14C and a frame lock, or 14C and a liner lock or crossbar lock or button lock, it's gonna sell. Okay, you take a piece of G10, like a G10 liner lock, throw a piece of 14C in it and price it at 50 to $60, and bam, it's gonna sell. Okay, that's the first problem with it. It's overused. The next problem with it is the China companies trying, it's a race to the bottom. Who can sell these things the cheapest? They all want to make money. Some don't mind making money by volume, by selling many, many units. So it's a race to the bottom. That's why you can pick up, I mean, hell, there's two 14C knives right now on Amazon. They're, I think, $17.99 and $18.99 by Felissa. Come on, man. $18. Like, come on, man. So you see, what's happening is this. These companies have it, they understand that 14C does pretty well at a wide range of hardness. It's a very it's not it's a very easy steel to heat treat, and it'll perform decent at 57. It'll perform decent at 59. Okay, so they know they've got a wide range of hardness that it'll work well at, and they can run it softer. It'll still perform decently, and they can save money. They can save time, faster grinding, less abrasive cost, less time. Um, the tooling cost is less because you're gonna it, the softer it is, the easier it machines. Okay, so these companies know they can run it at like 57, and it's not going to perform like dog shit. So you get these companies that are bringing, they're just flooding the market with 14C, and they're running at 57, 58 Rockwell. 14C already doesn't have its edge retention is not great to start with. Okay. It needs to be ran harder to have decent edge retention. When it's ran soft like that, the edge retention is so poor. Like people complain about 8CRs, saying how 8CR doesn't have serviceable edge retention. But I'll take a piece of, decently done 8CR. Give me like from San Remu, Spyderco, San Remu, even Kershaw, the Kershaw stuff. Hell, piece of eight like the 8CR chill. Hell, I'd even take 7CR over 14C that's at 56, 57 Rockwell, even 58 Rockwell, 56, 57, 58 in that range. The edge retention is just downright poor. And people, it tickles me when I hear people say, their favorite budget steel is 14C, and then they'll turn around and say, 8CR, man, that's not even serviceable for me. When in most cases that piece of 8CR is going to outcut that piece of 14C, and you're saying that 8CR doesn't have serviceable edge retention, but yet it'll outcut most of your favorite steel. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But that's my issue with 14C. Yes, it is tough as shit. Yes, it is extremely stainless. Yes, it does come up incredibly keen because of that super fine grain structure. You can get it wicked sharp. And it does strop back well, but it's also got a downside that goes along with that, and that's it gets slick very, very quickly, especially when it's softer. If you get 14C that's at 60, 61, it's a decent performing steel. If you get it at 58, it's not a very good performing steel. That's my problem with it. It's so all over the place. Companies that put out pretty good 14C, okay, I don't mind buying it. Civivi, 14C from Civivi, it's ran harder, it's decent. Um, they do a overall pretty good job on it. 14C from Kershaw, it's not terrible. I'll buy it sometimes. I wish they would run it a point or two harder. It's probably right there at that round 60. It'd be nice if they ran it, 61 ish, even 62, but you're not going to see that. Now I have punched a piece of 14C from Civivi that was right at 62. Most of it's, right around 61, 60 and a half, around there. But I've never seen it overly soft from Civivi. So, but that's my problem with 14C, and the fact that when it's on the soft side, it just gets so damn slick, and I hate a slick edge. And it doesn't matter if you run it. low and aggressive, say like a 400 grit edge, and nice toothy aggressive edge is still going to get slick pretty quickly. Um, After a couple strop backs, it's going to be slick because of that super fine grain structure. Um, if it's ran harder, you can, it does pretty good in that 600 to 1,000 grit range. Still has a decent bite, very high level of keenness. But when it's softer, and most of it is, it just gets so damn slick. Edge retention is just not enough. It just it's just not a very when it's ran softer, it's just not a very good steel in my opinion. Okay. um, it is a good steel overall, and it does have a place in my opinion. I kind of wish they'd move away from it in pocket knives and move over to something in its place, like say 19C27. They want to stay with Sandvik, perfect, go 19C27 and start, replace 14C with 19C, and you're good to go. Okay. But 14C that's below 60 Rockwell needs to leave the budget knife world because it performs terrible. I don't care what your favorite YouTubers tell you. Soft 14C performs like shit. It doesn't matter that you hear, your favorite YouTubers tell you, "Oh yeah, 14C it does great. It can be softer and it still does great. If it's 57, 58, it still performs great." That's bullshit. It starts to come alive at 60, and the harder you go, the better it performs. 60, 61, 62. You get a piece of 14C at 62, it's going to perform much better than it does at 60. But once you fall below that 60 threshold, it just starts to get terrible. So there you go. Now it does sharpen nicely. I'll give it that. Even when it's soft, it sharpens nicely. You rarely get pieces of it, even when you buy it really cheap, that have retained austenite issues. It's just, yeah. But I don't know. It's just a steel. I wish, if they're not going to run it, at least 60. It needs to be a target of 61. That's what they need to do. It needs to be a target of 61 plus minus 1. So you're 60 to 62. You got a target of 61. If it's like that, if a company's running it like that, okay, 14C is viable. But if they're going to run it at, say with a 59 target, 59, 60, and now you're getting, 58 to 60, it's, and especially if it's even, they're running softer than that. You get a piece of 58 Rockwell 14C, it's going to perform like shit. 57, shit. Like, it needs to be 60 plus. Okay. So that's why 14C did not make the list. And it's not because it's a bad steel. And where it really has a place, now where 14C is extremely viable is in, like, budget belt knives. Say you got, like a 5 or 6 inch camp knife in 14C. Man, and it's at 57, 58. That's going to be a great knife. It's nice and tough, super stainless. It'll do the job. Okay. So here we have N690, SF2, and RPM 9. RPM 9, we'll go with that one. Why didn't it make the list? RPM 9 is a solid steel. It for the money, it performs very good. It sharpens nicely. It's tough enough for its needs. It's plenty stainless. Oh yeah, that's pretty. You want to show them on camera? Ew. Yeah, come over. Daughter went and got her toenails done. That was funny. You want to show them on camera? Ooh, hell no. She knows there's foot fetish people out there. Anyways, RPM 9. It's a good steel. The reason it didn't make this in the top five is specifically because CJRB has been spotty. Okay. I don't care about the, oh, it was said to be a powder steel and it's a spray form steel and all that shit. I don't care about that. The reason is because you can go back and look. There's posts from me on Reddit when it first come out, and I said then it wasn't a. It was. I guarantee you, it is not a spray powder form steel. Um, I 100% believed it was an electro slag spray form steel. That's what I figured, and I was right. Would have been put over there. So RPM 9 has nothing to do with that. It's plenty tough, for pocket knives. It's plenty stainless. You can get it for quite low pricing. It's sharp if you get one that's, as long as they're done well, it sharpens nicely. It does well with lower grit toothy edges, mid grit edges, polished edges, don't matter. It does well with it all. Okay. Um, it holds its bite reasonably well. The overall edge retention is decent. Um, it's just overall a decent steel. But it doesn't. It has one downfall, and it doesn't have the attributes that these steels have now, because most of these are consistently done good across the brands. Even poor old D2 that used to catch hell because it was done poorly so much. Um, it RPM 9 is spotty. CJRB, when they first put it out, it was terrible. There was a heat treat issue, and they corrected it. But um, they did it good for about 2 years. You got consistently good RPM 9. But now, as of the past year, it's spotty again. I see, if you get a good piece of RPM 9, like that CJRB Crag I give away, that was a phenomenal piece of RPM 9, and it performed damn good. But you don't get that consistently. You get one here that's really good, you get one that's decent, you get a couple that's decent, then you get one that, hey, this is not performing very great. What's wrong? The heat treats are too inconsistent. The pieces of steel are too inconsistent from piece to piece. Um, you just you never know what you're getting when you buy RPM 9. That's my problem with it. Okay, if I'll put it this way: if every piece, or most pieces I bought of RPM 9 performed like that Crag, OS 8 wouldn't have made the list, because these steels would have stayed as they are, and it would have went here. Okay, so RPM 9 would have got, if they simply was consistent in giving you good, well heat treated pieces of steel that was ran at the hardness they need to be run at, and they were consistently well done, RPM 9 would have absolutely been, on this list. I would have give it OS 8's place. But that's not what you get. When you buy RPM 9, you're taking a risk. I'd say most of it's decent. Rarely do you get a piece that I would say is good. And you also run in the risk of getting a piece that's quite not good. Okay, I'd say overall it's decent. Most pieces you go buy are going to be decent. And if it's just decent, it doesn't perform with these steels right here. Okay, it It's just the way it is. If you get a good one, it's a damn good piece of steel for the money. But you just don't know what you're getting when you buy RPM 9. That is my problem with it. And I've told them this. I've sent many messages. If y'all would messages to them, if y'all would just get it consistent, you would have a hell of a piece of steel. A hell of a good budget steel on your hands. But there you go. That's RPM 9. SF2. SF2 has really impressed me since I've been using it. Okay. The edge retention is pretty damn decent. I haven't had no micro, edge stability issues, no microchipping, no issues with it. Edge retention is respectable. Um, Sharpens decently. It's not the greatest sharpening steel. Out of the two pieces I have, both of them definitely have some retained austenite. Can tell by the way the burr acts. But if they cleared that up, it would be up here too. But as is, yep. Even though it performs pretty decently, having RA issues and 2 out of 2 knives. I'm sorry, three out of 3 knives. Yeah, I have three of them, and every one of them got sticky gummy burrs, even multiple edges in. And it's not getting any better. So I know it's not like a burn edge. It's a RA issue, and if there's RA, too much RA in the steel, you have that. The sharpening experience is not very nice, even though it sharpens pretty decently. But struggling with a burr, there's no need for that. If they can't get the RA out of that steel efficiently, then they need to change their protocol and figure it out, because 3 out of 3 pieces all have gummy sticky burrs, and it's just that's the problem with it. If it wasn't for that issue, the steel itself performs pretty decently. I will give it that. Edge retention, respectable. Toughness, have no issues with it. It's stainless. I haven't had no stainlessness issues, no corrosion issues. Overall, it's a pretty good performing piece of steel. But well, I had to change the uh, the mini roach out of here because I didn't think about it, but the mini roach is 154 cm, not in 690 like I was thinking. Okay, so sorry, I had to change that. Um, Last on this table would be good old N690. Fantastic steel. I love N690. When it's done well, like in the Italian Spydercos or just a bunch of different Italian makers doing N690, it is a fantastic steel. But the problem with it is, it's typically just priced too much. It's too expensive. Um, Now, and like the N690 stuff coming from China, okay, that takes care of the price issue. You can pick up N690 for a reasonable price from a bunch multiple different China companies like Kaiser, and it's a pretty solid performing piece of steel. Toughness is great, stainlessness is great, edge retention is pretty decent. Um, but there's a problem with it, and that's why it didn't make up here. It's just too inconsistent. Uh, when you buy in 690, and and you're buying China knives in it in the say 50, 60, $70 range, you just don't know what you're getting. Um, I've never worked with the steel, so I can't, from a heat treating perspective, I can't, tell you, but I'm assuming that N690 is a steel that gives production, large volume makers an issue, and it's in the heat treating because it's just too inconsistent. I can buy 5 Kaiser knives in 690, and I will have 5 knives that perform very likely all perform differently. Um, One's going to perform really solid. It's going to sharpen nicely. Edge retention is going to be really good. It's going to strop back nicely. Go to the next one, and God only knows what it's going to be. It might be terrible. And you're going to have all in between. It's just too inconsistent. So, what I think it is, I think in the large volume makers trying to make, sell it dirt cheap, nice knives for cheap, and they're, so they're doing massive heat treating, 1,000 blades at a time, 1,500, 2,000 blades at a time. And I think that N690 acts a lot like M390. I'm assuming, and in large production. And I believe that the China companies that are putting out, their mass volume, and that's why they have such a hard time with M390 is, putting out good M390, because M390 is a steel that just does not like mass heat, large volume heat treating. It to get a good performing piece of steel. I'm assuming N690 is much like that. That's why if you buy, from higher end makers that are doing smaller heat treating batches, I mean, it's still large production, but they're not doing 2,000 blades at a time. They might be heat treating 100 blades at a time. So, they're using smaller ovens. It's just that's what I believe it is. I believe it's, when they're doing really large batch stuff, N690 just doesn't do well with it. And you get a massive range of performance just depending on where it's at in the kiln. At least that's what I think. I don't know though. I know that I have Kaiser N690 that performs damn good and could be up here even rivaling like 154 CM. If every piece was like some of the pieces of this stuff I have, it would be right up there with it. It may even take the number one spot. But I also have quite a few pieces that are terrible, and I have a bunch that are in between that range, and not just from Kaiser, but from multiple makers. So if N690 is a fantastic steel, it just is inconsistent from China. From the China budget companies, it's just inconsistent. That's what I've seen of it. That's why, and I have no doubt that Kaiser stopped working, stopped production of N690 knives, and they changed all it over to 154 CM. I know why they did that. They did it because they knew that it was that they were getting huge inconsistencies across their knives. I know that's why they did it. I mean, that's what makes sense to me, because price wise, they're buying Crucible made 154 CM. They're paying a pretty penny for it. They're buying, of course, Bowler made N690. It's not cheap. So price wise, it probably wasn't much different between the two. Their cost. The I believe that they changed over from N690 to 154 CM because they knew that they were having large inconsistencies from batch to batch, and within, not batch to batch, but piece to piece within the batches. And they were more than likely, they're doing hardness samples. They're taking out, say they do a 1,500 blade heat treat cycle, they pull out, say 10 of those, 15 of those blades, and they punch them, and they're getting from 56 Rockwell to 60, 61 Rockwell or something like that. There was a huge range. Like it's enough that I can take three different knives that I have, put them on the stones, be blindfolded, and I could tell you which one is which because the hardness difference between those three knives is enough that I can absolutely feel it on the stones, even though they're all Kaisers, they're all N690. They're I guarantee you I haven't poked it so I don't know, but I guarantee you I have a Kaiser in N690 that is probably at 56 Rockwell. And I have Kaiser N690 that performs damn fine. And it's probably up there around 60, 61. So, yeah, I mean, and it's not just Kaiser, that's across the board. Um, Hell, I've even had uh, Maniago made knives in N690 that most of them perform really solid, but I've had a couple that were definitely not all that great. They were clearly soft. They had some RA issue as well, super gummy, and it's just I don't know. From my experience with N690, if it's coming from China, it's all over the place. The Italian stuff, I've had mostly positive experience with it, but I have also had some that definitely left something to be desired. So, but staying out of Italy, we're talking China because that's where you're going to be within the budget price range at. It's just N690. It's just been all over the place for me. And as much as I like the steel and as capable as the steel is, when it's super inconsistent like that, it makes it to where it's just you can't you can't recommend it because I could buy I could buy this piece here, and this one's great, and you buy it and it's horrible. Um, and if you told me, hey, that knife you told me, it was awesome, I went and bought one, and man, it's garbage. I would 100% understand that. Well, shit, I believe him because I've experienced that myself. You just it's much like this right here. But CJR RPM9 CJRB, you just don't know what you're getting. One can be great, one can be decent, one can be okay, and one can be fucking terrible. And that's just how it's been, and that is exactly what I've experienced with China done in 690. And it's a steel that I really love when it's done well and it performs great, but you just don't know what you're getting, so that's why it can't make the list. But there you go, guys. There's my top 5 budget steels, and you know, kind of interchangeable one right here. But there you go. That any of these steels like is going to make a fantastic steel for you. Um, from brand to brand, they're consistent. They're good. Um, just overall great steels. The great budget steels that companies have know how to work pretty well and do a good job with, and they just make really good performing budget steels. So I know that was long. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was fun. It was real. Good night.